Hi everyone, in this video I explain the different types of comments in Java. There's a single line comment, a multi-line comment and a Javadoc comment. Let's first start out by looking at a single line comment. A single line comment starts with 2 forward slashes followed by the comment that you want to type. Single line comments are typically used to explain complex statements such as arithmetic calculations that are not really clear by looking at the statements itself. So here you can see I'm calculating something, but it's not really clear what I'm doing. I could use a single line comment and explain what I'm calculating. Another good use case for single line comments is if I have a section of code that I want to explain what's happening in that section. For example, here you can see I'm creating a scanner object. I'm prompting the user for some input. I'm reading in an integer. Then I prompt for another input and read in a second integer. Now for this section of code, I added a single line comment that says gathering user data. Now down here, I perform a calculation of multiplying 8 by b and then storing the result. Again, I added a single line comment that says calculate result. Now you can imagine this calculation could be much more complex. It might be multiple lines of code. And then after the calculation, I perform additional tasks with multiple statements. So by adding a single line comment to each section of code, if you come back later in a month, in 6 months, in a year, or somebody else wants to understand your code, it's very easy for them to just glance over the code, look at the comments of each section and see you're gathering user data, you're calculating the result, and then going to the next section and looking at those single line comments. That gives them a high level idea of what you're doing in your code. Now, if they want to know more specifics for each section, they can go in and read the individual statements. Then there's also a multi-line comment. A multi-line comment starts with a forward slash followed by an asterisk. And then each line in the multi-line comment also starts with an asterisk. Although the asterisk for any additional lines is optional. The last line of a multi-line comment has to be a asterisk followed by a forward slash. Now I could also write a multi-line comment in a single line. So I can write forward slash asterisk multi-line comment asterisk forward slash. This is also a multi-line comment, although I'm only using a single line. And I could also do this, type, and then leave these out. So these ones are not required. The required part is forward slash asterisk and then asterisk forward slash. But typically, by convention, every line starts also with an asterisk. Now, multi-line comments are good if you cannot get away with a single line. Sometimes you have some more complex code that you can't easily explain in a single line. You need to add additional context, and for that, multi-line comments are great. Now, before I move on to Javadoc comment, it's also important to note that you don't want to comment every single line of code. You really want to get away with the least amount of comments that you really need. If you feel that you need more comments and you keep adding comments, you should really ask yourself, is your code clear enough? As a software engineer, you really want to focus to write your code in a way that the code explains itself. The best code is a code that doesn't require any comments at all. So you always want to focus on the code, that the code is so clear that it explains itself. Sometimes though it is helpful to add comments, and that's what comments are useful. Now let's move on to Javadoc comments. Up here I have a Javadoc comment. Similar like a multi-line comment, it starts with a forward slash, but then 2 asterisks. And then every line also by convention starts with an asterisk. And the last line, asterisk, followed by a forward slash, ends the Javadoc comment. Now Javadoc comments are used to explain classes, member variables, or methods of a class. Now in this example, I explain the class. Many Javadoc comments also include tags. So here I have a tag @author, and then I have a tag @version. This part up here is my comment. It should explain what this class is used for and what it does, what it represents, and so on. And then I have a tag that explains the author who created the class and then the version of that class. Now further down here, I have a member variable. This is named name of type string, and I also added a Javadoc comment. You can see it by the 2 asterisks. This one says it represents the name of this object. And then another example of a Javadoc comment is down here for this method. This method also has / 2 asterisk. Now for this method, I also provide an explanation what this method does, what it's used for. And this method has 2 parameters. The first one is num1, the second num2. For each of these, I also have a tag, and they explain what these 2 parameters do and what they're used for. And these explain what each parameter is used for. Then I have a tag for the return, and that explains the return value that is returned by this method. Now, what's nice about Javadoc comments is as I use these methods or fields, so you can see up here, I call the addNumbers method. If I hover over, I get this explanation up here. It adds 2 integers and returns the sum. It requires 2 parameters, num1 and num2. I can see what this represents, and then I see what this method returns. Now, Javadoc comments are not just used in your own code, but typically in Java libraries. Or if you want to create your own library in Java, then really you should consider adding Javadoc comments. Now, when you're done with your library, you can use the Javadoc comments to provide official documentation of your API. Let's take a look at the Java JDK and how they use Javadoc comments. Here I open the java.lang.math class. This class has a very long Javadoc comment. This explains what this class does, what it's used for. Then if I go to the field summary, there's explanations for the fields. There's a method summary, so each method has documentation on the method. And let's pick a specific method. Let's use the max method. So when I click on this, I can see an explanation what this method is used for. It returns the greater of 2 double values. It has 2 parameters, a and b. There's one argument, another argument. In this case, it's really just anything, any double. But if yours is very specific, you want to be more specific in your explanation here. And then it has a return value, which is defined here. It's the larger of a and b. So if you write a library and you use Javadoc comment, you can generate this type of documentation for your code, and it makes it really easy for other users to use your library and understand what your classes and methods are used for. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.